Welcome back, fantastic to have you here. We have even more incredible clips from movies and TV shows that feature blacksmithing and metalworking, and I am going to react to them.
Forged by the deadliest.
Ooh, that's some crusty metal. That guy is swinging that sledge really weird. The hand hammer that one guy in the middle is swinging, definitely not made of solid steel.
Blade could only be...
Every time, halfway through forging a blade, they quench it. This is the third or fourth time we've been doing it. When will you hear us, Hollywood? Quick TLDR, you only quench a blade when it's ready for hardening. You don't go quenching it midway through forging because it will crack and break.
Its blade could only be quenched in human blood.
Its blade could only be quenched in human blood. I love it. Quenching is when you heat up the blade for the hardening process, a nice even red temperature, and you cool it down really fast, either in oil, water, or simply air cooling, depending on the steel. With most of the steels that are being used to make knives and especially swords, you cool it down in oil, and that's because it cools slightly slower than water, meaning you're less liable to have cracks, fractures, or extra significant warps. Human blood, I would imagine, though it's a lot thicker, it's probably a lot more like water than it is oil. So I don't know why they're quenching it in human blood, but it might be interesting to find out if it works well. Ah, they're liars. They didn't quench it in human blood, they quenched it in oil. So when you go ahead and quench a blade, you cool it down and you take it out when it's too hot, all the vapors from the oil can ignite, and then you end up with a flaming blade. So they have lied to us. It's not human blood. They quenched it in oil, just like they should have. Oh, we got some good Damascus here. This is a multi-bar construction of Damascus. At the top, we have a solid section of steel. Then coming down one row, we have some twisted Damascus that has been ground in about halfway. Some more good stuff in the middle, twist Damascus, then the solid metal. This is an actual Damascus blade. So the production team actually got a bladesmith to make them a Damascus blade. And I think that is super cool that they did that. That really adds a good element of authenticity. Right, who's up next, Jamie?
This one's actually Raid Shadow Legends.
No way, you mean the chart-topping game for mobile and PC that's sponsoring this episode?
Yes.
No.
Tell them about Ronda.
Oh, Ronda Rousey. She now has a champion in-game. You can get the legendary MMA fighter as your champion simply by logging in and playing Raid consecutively for 7 days between now and February 28th.
What about the Christmas special? 12 days of Raid, eh?
Download Raid, copy your player ID, then head to 12daysofraid.playerroom.com, enter your player ID, and set out on a festive Raid adventure that lasts for 12 days. New players could win holiday-themed Raid champions and could even win Amazon gift cards worth up to $1,000. Existing players can also get a special holiday promo code there too. But as ever, if you're a new player, use my download link in the description below or scan the QR code on screen to get a free starter pack worth almost $30. You'll get Tyrell, also this cool in-game loot, and you're going to be finding rewards here in your inbox for the next 30 days.
Is there a metal worker?
Okie dokie, so he's asking somebody if there's a metal worker around. He presumably wants to use some of his tools. This shot here looks like a nice traditional open-air, old-school smithy. So it kind of looks like our main character is trying to commandeer the use of these grinding stones. What I'm really confused about, though, is what is the guy in the background doing with this rope? Is that meant to be powering this grinding stone? That would certainly not be accurate. The grindstone would be water-powered, perhaps powered by a donkey, a mule, a horse, or
your mum.
The sword itself does look a little bit crusty. It doesn't look like a finished blade. But apparently it cuts. Something tells me that sword didn't cut that bit of wood. There's no chance he's making it through that in one swing anyway. What's up next?
This is the African Queen. Oh no, is it the Queen of Africa?
Jamie.
This is either the Queen of Africa or the African Queen. I can't remember the name of the movie. But the clip is a guy breaks his propeller on his boat and he apparently forge welds it back together.
Beautiful. Let's get into it. So first of all, I'm pretty sure most propellers on boats are made out of bronze. So it's going to be interesting to see how he tackles it and what the propeller actually looks like. I love this. So what we're seeing is the lady is pumping these two makeshift bellows in order to push air through the tube that is just in front of this bed of hot coals. You need air in a fire because you won't get the coals hot enough to actually forge, especially not forge weld steel, without the added oxygen. So you've got to keep air going to it. I see absolutely nothing wrong with this from the surface.
Well, let's see how authentic the next part is.
Okay. Okay. That is cold. Oh. It was so good. And then it was so bad. So regardless of what metal this is made out of, whether it's steel, brass, bronze, there is no way you get this to join like that. What they're doing is they are putting these two broken pieces together and then hammering on top. They're making a butt weld, but they're hammering on top. It's never gonna happen. They need some filler metal in there to be able to fill that gap. And considering it's probably not steel, they'd have to braze it. And of course, it's far too cold. There's just not a chance this is working. Oh, interesting. That little bronze-colored line starts to look like a little bit of filler material from some brazing, which they definitely didn't do. Yeah, I'm not too disappointed with this so far. That's okay. He's not making a blade. You're allowed to quench it when you're making like ornamental or like architectural ironwork. It's what it looks like he's doing. Okay, so now we have a farrier shoeing a horse.
It's the same guy.
Well, that's an interesting point, isn't it? A lot of the times when people say, what do you do? And I say, well, I'm a blacksmith. They go, oh, interesting, so you work with horses. And I go, well, no. Back in the day, blacksmith and farrier, there was a little bit more crossover than there is now. Now, there is very much a difference between a blacksmith being somebody that just works with steel and a farrier, somebody that works with horses.
But back in the day, would they have been required to do both?
Back in the day, super common that the blacksmith also had skills in horseshoeing. Really only a more modern time thing that there's been a differentiation between the two trades, and that differentiation probably happened over the last 100 years or so. My great-grandfather was a blacksmith and was also a horseshoer. And in the Second World War, he was putting shoes on not only horses, but also on oxen, which is cool.
I thought you were going to say he's putting shoes on horses and on tanks.
Oh, and look at that, we've got a nice set of bellows here. The way they're made is you've got a board on the bottom and a board on the top with leather wrapped around the outside. As you inhale, valve opens, lets air in through one of the boards. As you push down, pushes it over into the forge. Now this starts to look a little bit funny here. A little CGI maybe. The hot steel didn't look super authentic in that shot. That's awful. When you get a first timer stepping into the forge and they want to be able to move the material a certain way, you'll sometimes see them doing this brushing action. I want to push the metal that way, so I will brush it. You don't do that. When you want to hit, you hit. You don't do any sort of brushing or stroking intentionally. And what he's doing is a very brushy stroke. No good. Maritain stops Nemesis.
This one is Samaritan.
So it's not Maritain, it's Samaritan.
So Nemesis forged a powerful
Wow.
a hammer that he
So they've made this fake casting crap that's not actually casting. It's this open-topped mold that includes the handle. Come on. But then look at this. This shot right there, that is a Harbor Freight 12-pound sledgehammer. They cut the handle off and put in a fire. That is the most classic cheap hardware store sledgehammer that you can buy everywhere. Octagonal faces. That is hilarious. They spent $20 on that shot. Oh gosh.
This clip has been suggested in all of the previous React videos, and he makes a meteorite sword.
Lovely. Okay, this chap's loading up the forge, and maybe that monstrosity is the meteorite. If that's the meteorite, it is enormous. It's like world record iron meteorite size. Box bellows. The writers here have done a brilliant job of showing a very authentic Japanese air blowing system for a forge. It's a box bellows. Instead of the leather bellows that we saw in one of the previous clips, here it would be a box. You'd have a plate of wood. You'd simply push that plate of wood in, ramming all that air into the fire. Okay, this is nice. So what they've done is they've put the meteorite in a crucible as opposed to just forging it, which is actually exactly the way it would be done properly. What was that? Okay, hammer comes down, hits it, and the steel bounces up. Do you want to know what that tells you? that tells you that steel was ice cold. So they haven't actually heated this metal up, which is, oh my goodness, look at that. So I look at this shot and I think, what? Look at what is on the blade. They have sprinkled a little bit of charcoal or some sort of flammable substance on top of this cherry red blade. That blade is not very hot. The blade is not hot enough to make any sort of sparks. They've sprinkled it on there so that as the hammer hits, that little substance sends out some sparks. That is some very cheap, very poor special effects, and that is very embarrassing. It is as simple as getting a piece of steel really hot and then hitting it to have nice sparks. You know how I know?
Because I do it once every 6 months.
I do it once every 6 months. This is just too ludicrous to even comment further on. What on earth is that blade? Did they make a Middle Ages tactical sword? It really looks like it. There's got to be a glass breaker on there. I'm pretty sure that that is a seatbelt cutter. It's awful! You've seen the good, you've seen the very bad. Please let us know down below what movie and TV scenes you would like us to react to on the next one. If you want to actually make things and have actual sparks and an actual blacksmithing hammer, we sell them at the Alec Steele Co. so that you can get started making actual blades. And I'll see you very soon.